Hello and welcome to the Valley. Today I am your host, Janet Michael. I have an extra special guest on the show with me today. Guest and a half, because I'm wondering at some point if Joe Woodall is not going to pop his head onto the Zoom screen. But today, the main attraction is his wife, Ashley Woodall. Ashley has done the show with me years ago when it was live. She and I are really good friends. Joe, of course, worked at the radio station forever. I have to credit him because Ashley, as people are listening on Wednesday, the 29th of April, I am set to have my 2633rd consecutive episode next week, and we'll celebrate 10 years hosting the show. And none of that would be possible if Joe Woodall hadn't said, "Hey, Andrew, you should ask Janet to take over the Valley today."
He does have some good ideas every once in a while.
He really does. There are days, though, where I'm thinking, dude, what did you do? Some days I'm grateful. Some days I'm very angry with him.
Same.
Probably much like you. So you and I have known each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
You have a child who is on the spectrum. Aiden is on the spectrum.
Yes.
You and Joe and this community that you have built with parents that have children with autism have taken on this project, putting together these sensory bags. And I want to talk about those a little bit more in the second segment. But before we get into all of what those are and why they're important, would you share your story with me and with the listeners for how you came into this space?
To start, I guess, Aiden was really sick as an infant. So in 2023, we went to UVA. We met with, it's called their Aero Digestive Team. We met with them and a speech pathologist regarding some medical issues. And the speech pathologist said, "Hey, I think you should probably get him into some therapies. There's some stuff going on that's a little concerning. Reach out to Infant Toddler Connection through Grafton." So we did, and they came to the house and they were doing some assessments and they were telling us he's so behind in this and he's behind in that. And we're seeing some sensory disorder kind of things. And I asked them, I said, "Do you think he could be autistic?" Because we have a friend whose daughter is autistic. And I kind of sort of started noticing some similarities between the two of them. And they're like, "We can't answer that for you, but definitely talk to his pediatrician. We think that's worth a conversation." So we did. 2-ish months later, we were at the pediatrician's office and we started expressing some of our concerns. He was a late crawler. He was a late walker, definitely a late talker. He said mama, dada, and tickle. Those were his first 3 words and nothing else at all. Nothing else came. And then he stopped saying them. He would choke on his food. He would eye things weird. He did not like certain textures. It was just a whole bunch of different things that kind of came together. And when we met with the pediatrician, there's this test that they give all kids about that age. And she said, "This is definitely saying there's a concern for autism there." By that point, I had already done my research and I said, "Look, we are on the waiting list to get into developmental. There is a 1 to 2 year wait to get in to get that official diagnosis because there's so many kids trying to get in to see these doctors." I said, "I don't want to wait 2 years to try to get him services that are going to help his quality of life." So the pediatrician's like, "You know what? I feel very comfortable giving him this diagnosis, but I still want you to go to developmental." So we got the diagnosis and right away we started getting him on through DSS, the long-term care waiver, which gives us a caregiver for him, caregiver position. It also kind of changes the rules for the Medicaid portion of it, where it doesn't consider the parent's income, it just considers his income. And obviously, as a toddler, he did not have any income. So with that, we were able to start ABA therapy. He had already been getting speech therapy, developmental therapy, and occupational therapy in home. Once he aged out of those programs, we were able to carry over what he needed in the more of the private sector through Valley Health. But ABA was the big one. So he's been in ABA since July of 24, and it has been the absolute best thing for him. He went from not talking to he would grab your hand and drag you to the pantry door and put your hand on it to let you know he wanted a snack, or to the refrigerator, to telling us, "Brownie, I want brownie." He has an AAC device to help him communicate with us now too, which is an augmentative alternative communication device where he can push buttons and it talks for him. And that helps him also. He's what they call a Gestalt language processor. So he learns language by phrases versus by sounds and words. So he'll hear a phrase and he'll either really like that phrase or he'll realize, hey, that gets me something that I want or that I need. And then he'll start saying it. So it may not be 100% what he wants, but it's close enough that we can kind of decipher what he needs. They've worked on his eating, so he's not choking on food anymore. They've worked on a lot of his sensory texture issues, his behavioral issues, all of that, to the point where he's night and day, such a different kid than what he was when he started the whole process. And I contribute that to his amazing therapist that we have had on this very exhausting journey.
That's one of the places where I'll step in as your friend and commend you as well, because I cannot begin to imagine how overwhelming all of that must have been. You had another child already at home.
Mhm.
So you had been through this parenting experience twice already. And this had to have been quite shocking. And then an overwhelming amount of things that you then have to learn, understand, and educate yourself on in a very short period of time.
Exactly. You have to completely change your way of thinking as a parent, because what you would think in a neurotypical child as being defiant or just being difficult, in a child with autism, that could be they're hungry and they just can't express that to you, or they don't feel good, or they're tired, or they're overstimulated, they're dysregulated. It could be any number of things that they can't communicate with you, that it's not them being disrespectful or just not listening or being defiant. It's a need that's not being met. So you have to learn how to decipher between that. And it's exhausting. It's rewarding when you finally, oh, hey, I know what this is now. But it completely changes your parenting style. It changes the way you think about kids growing up, because at 2, we couldn't potty train, because how do you potty train a child that can't communicate with you that they need to go to the bathroom? So even now at 4, he's still not potty trained because we still haven't reached a level of communication yet where that's possible. So it just changes everything.
I mean, you ran the dispatch for Warren County for a lot of years. So crisis is not something that you react to in a crazy way. You are a very calm and let's think this through type of person. So when this diagnosis first came through, were you thinking, I've got this? And then I imagine along the way, there were some points in time where you're like, I don't got this.
Exactly. So having that idea before we had professionals start telling us, hey, there's some concerns, I think helped, because when we started having those really hard conversations, when we went to that doctor's appointment, and even when we finally got in with the developmental, it wasn't a surprise to us. It wasn't like this big shock. We had an opportunity to kind of work all of those emotions out. So when we finally got on paper that he had autism, for me, it was okay, what's the next step? What do I have to do to help him? Because everything that I read, everything that I learned was that early intervention was key. You had to get early intervention going as soon as possible. And that was my goal. And nothing was going to stand in my way of making that happen for him. That's part of the reason I don't have a career outside of the house anymore, was because getting him to his therapies became one of the most important things in our house, making sure that he had what he needed. And by being home with him, I could work with him, continue what they were doing at therapies with him, and kind of integrate that into the house. And that has helped significantly with getting him to where he is now.
And I seem to recall there were some struggles even with that, because locally, those services weren't available.
So we actually, the timeline it was perfect for us. And I hate to say that, but it just lined up perfectly. So when we first started looking at some services and stuff, there's not enough services for the amount of kids that need them. So you have waiting lists, just like with the developmental pediatrician. You have waiting lists that are sometimes 6 months, a year, 2 years, or more to get your child into these services. So Infant Toddler Connection, they provide services for children up to the age of 3 in home, and it's income based. So they take your insurance, but then based on how much you make per month in the household, there's a cap on what you would have to pay out of pocket. So those services are pretty much guaranteed, I believe. So we started that right away. ABA, at the time, there were only one ABA provider in the town that we knew of. We honestly didn't feel very comfortable with the style of ABA that they provided, but it was the only option we had. That ended up not working out. Right around that time, we learned of another ABA clinic that was opening in the community. They were accepting new patients. We reached out, we went to an open house. We fell in love with the style of ABA therapy, with the way they had everything set up, the cleanliness of the building, and he was able to get in quickly, which is not heard of at all. That's where he's been since. OT, we were able to transition fairly seamlessly to Valley Health on the bypass to get occupational therapy. Speech therapy has been more difficult. Even Valley Health is struggling to have speech therapists on staff. They've had some travel. So with that, we went to the schools because after 3, they can get into the schools for some of those services also. It's just limited. It's only during the school year. So you have all summer where they're not getting those services. So it works. It's way better than nothing, but it's not the most optimal that you would hope for a child with delayed language abilities.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about these sensory bags that you're creating, but I also want to make sure we touch a little bit on the outside looking in. So, me as a parent of a child who was not on the spectrum, what I should know when I see you out with Aiden getting ice cream, or I see you at the grocery store, some things that people from the outside looking in should know and understand from a judgment perspective. Can we talk a little bit about that in the next segment?
Absolutely.
We're on the Zooms today with Ashley Woodall. We were talking about her journey with her son, Aiden, who is on the spectrum for autism. We're also going to learn about these great sensory bags she and her husband, Joe Woodall, are putting together when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
Wherever there's a need in our communities, there's a united way. Improving lives so everyone can thrive. Where more people can gain access to healthcare and nutritious food for their tables. Where more community members can benefit from financial education and get connected to local resources for housing support. And where children are given more chances to reach their full potential. Community is where we find our strength and where we share our hope. United is the way. Visit unitedway.org.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. I am on the Zooms today with Ashley Woodall. She is a dear friend of mine. Her husband, Joe Woodall. Many of you may recognize his name from his many, many years working at the River 95.3. Today, Ashley and I are talking about their son, Aiden, in particular. Aiden was diagnosed as being on the spectrum for autism. We talked a little bit, Ashley, in the first segment about how that journey started and what it's been like up until this point. But I wonder from the other side looking in, like we were talking before we started recording about things you can and can't do with Aiden and things that you wish other people knew when you were out and about with him, say at the grocery store. Can you take him to the grocery store? What does that look like for you?
So a lot of that depends on him and the mood that he's in that day. Just like anybody else, he has really good days and he has the occasional really bad day where we're not going to leave the house because it's just not possible. On good days, we can go to the store, but it can change at the drop of a dime. He will get very fixated on things. So if he sees something he wants, even if it's something he can't have, he shouldn't have, he will become fixated and he cannot stop until he is either redirected to something else or he gets what he wants. And when he gets like this, it's not just a simple like, I want. He will have meltdowns, screaming, crying, kicking his feet, flapping his arms, yelling, all sorts of things. And it can be very distracting when you're in the store. There's times where people walk past and they see me struggling with this 4-year-old trying to put him in the shopping cart because he has no sense of danger at all. So he will very quickly just run away from you. He elopes and he's fast for a 4-year-old. Fighting to get him in the shopping cart even sometimes is a struggle because he's yelling, no, I don't want to. And I'm saying, yes, you have to. And it's just a battle. And I'm sure people are looking at me like I'm a crazy woman trying to shove him in a shopping cart at the grocery store. And then there's other days where he is just so excited to go shoppy, as he calls it, that he's in the best of moods, and we get there and he gets in the cart with no problem and we can shop and there's just minimal issues and we leave and everything's great. And then there's just other times where it just quickly turns into a complete disaster. He gets overstimulated, he hyperfixates, and then all of that quickly turns to dysregulation. And it's hard to re-regulate your child when you're in a brightly lit store with all these people walking around and people are staring, and it just makes it difficult.
I use the example of the grocery store because it is typically one of those things you can't just avoid. So I can imagine, because I've seen it happen, where other people are like, why don't you just leave him at home? Or why don't you take that child back to the car? And everybody who has no idea what is going on in that moment or the moments that you have had leading up to getting him into the cart are very judgmental and think you should be doing it the way maybe they did with their kids who were not on the spectrum. So in that moment, it is not only stressful for him, I can't begin to imagine how stressful it is for you. I would get arrested on a regular basis because I would just start punching people in the face.
I mean, it does cross your mind. But it ultimately, you can't leave your child at home because eventually they are going to have to go in a store. And as they get older, they're going to have to go into a store on a bad day, and they are going to have to learn how to handle that, how to cope with that. So yeah, you have to take them to the store even on their bad day. They have to learn the life skill of going to the store. It's something they're going to have to do no matter what, especially as they get older. And ABA, that's where they come in. They help him find ways to regulate. They help him learn the skills he needs to be able to do the hard things. But that's all like a classroom, school-based. So I have to give him those skills in the real world. I have to take what they're teaching him and I have to put them in real world situations to help him learn how to do that. So not taking him to the store isn't an option. And a lot of times families with an autistic child, they're limited on their support system. We may have a lot of people who are there, they check in on us and they will hear us out on a really bad day. But when it comes to people who can actually watch your child with autism, that's a big ask. It's a very difficult thing to do. Your child has to be comfortable with them or it's a complete and total meltdown. And they're a handful. They're a handful, and they're just like other kids. They're sneaky. They're quick to get into things, but he has no sense of self-preservation. So when he gets into things, he can get into things pretty quickly. So it's not just as easy as leaving him at home with someone else. So if you want to go out as a family, the only choice you have a lot of times is to bring them with you. And I think that's what we should be doing. They should be included. Just because they're different, just because they have those issues, doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be able to go to the store and be in public and interact with other people just like everybody else.
And if ever there was a perfect example of walk a mile in their shoes, this is that example, because as someone else sitting in that restaurant, in that grocery store, you have no idea what is actually happening or what it has taken to get you to that point. At best, we should be saying, can I help you with something? It's okay. You've got this. At worst, it is really ugly. So in that moment, walk away. Remove yourself from that situation.
Yeah. If you can't be helpful, then just walk away. There are a lot of places within our community that support autistic individuals. You have Brick House, they do their sensory days. I know El Maguey, the Mexican restaurant here in town. Anytime we have gone there, we have walked in carrying a Happy Meal. Because individuals with autism, they have their safe foods. That's what they want to eat. And there's nothing on their menu that he will eat. And they have never said a word to us, ever. He sits down, he eats his Happy Meal. We get to have our amazing Mexican food. Everybody's happy. And as a parent with autism, that is huge because not a lot of other places are accepting of that. They'll tell, oh, you can't bring in outside food. I don't have a choice. If you want my business, you can't have one without the other.
It's a deal breaker.
Yeah. So it limits where we can go. And as we find these businesses, we share that with others within the community of kids with autism and hopefully bulk up their business some, because it is rare to find places that support that.
When we're talking about grocery stores and restaurants, that's one thing that you as a parent take that initiative for. These sensory bags that you are creating, you're creating them for law enforcement, fire and rescue, EMS, because those are situations that a parent doesn't always have control over and would be very good for someone in that position to be able to have if they find themselves dealing with someone who has autism.
Absolutely. And those situations are stressful already. Individuals with autism tend to do the best with structure and routine. An emergency situation is the exact opposite of that. And depending on that emergency situation, the primary caregiver could be the one that's having that medical emergency or that issue, and they can't help their child or the person that they take care of. And that can be a very overwhelming situation. Then you add in sirens, people they don't know, people wearing weird clothes that they're not familiar with, the bright lights, all the commotion, all the different things going on around them, that can very quickly overwhelm an individual with autism. And then you get into a meltdown. Meltdowns look a lot like temper tantrums or being defiant. So having something where, as a first responder, you can say, okay, the situation's really loud. How can I decrease that? There's only so much you can do on an emergency scene to lower the volume. But noise canceling headphones can do a lot. The bright lights, if it's a motor vehicle accident, you can't turn the flashing lights off if it's the middle of the night, because then you pose a risk for yourself and others. So sunglasses help dim that a little bit. Having fidget toys and sensory toys that they can mess with, that they can play with, tactile things to help distract them from everything else going on around them, that can make a huge difference for these kids. And it also helps to build a little bit of a rapport between the first responder presenting those items to the individual with autism to show, I'm your friend, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm here to help you. And that can go a really long way with getting that individual to open up or be a little more willing to do as they're being asked to do.
And those are all things that are in this bag that you're putting
Yes.
together. And so who are you hoping to have bags to go to all of the Front Royal Police Department, to Warren County Sheriff? Tell me about the audience that you want to get these bags into the hands of.
Our initial goal was for 50 bags. We've met that goal. We're waiting on the last couple things to come in to be able to put them together and get them out into the hands of the first responders in the community. We're going to divide them as best we can between the agencies based on their need and the size of the agency. When I spoke to a few other moms of children that go to ABA with Aiden about the idea, our thought was at least one bag on the streets at all times, because it's very simple. It's going to be in a cinch sack. So it's something very easy they can hand off to somebody else. It's not going to be very big. So it can very easily be stored in an ambulance or the trunk of a police car, even the glove box potentially. So the goal was one on the street at all times. Eventually, I would love to have one on every piece of emergency apparatus within Warren County. I don't know the total number to make that happen. I know it's more than 50 because you're looking at, there's 11 ambulances within Warren County between the 9 firehouses that Warren County support and then the administrative building. You're looking at 1 to 2 more pieces of fire apparatus, sometimes 3 depending on the station, or more. Some of them have more than that. Then you look at the command staff vehicles, and then you look at the sheriff's office, and they've got school resource, the courts, patrol, animal control. It's a lot. It's a whole lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So the goal is over time, hopefully, to be able to raise some more money and be able to donate more bags.
Have they been receptive to receiving these bags? Please say yes. Please don't tell me that they said absolutely not. We want no part of this.
No, so honestly, when I had this idea, I reached out to some friends, and Joe reached out to a friend, and it was more of a, hey, do you guys have these? If not, how many would you need to meet our goal of at least one on the street at all times? And then fire and rescue came back with, we would need this number. The individual from the sheriff's office I spoke to said we would need this many. And then the person I spoke to from the police department said we would need this many. But as far as speaking to like their command staff, the sheriff, the police chief, either the fire chief or the assistant fire chief, I actually haven't done that yet. It was one of those things I didn't want to get everybody's hopes up that this would be something we would be able to do, not
And then
knowing
not be
if it
able
was
to create the bags.
Exactly. But the support for these bags was just overwhelming. We met our goal in no time at all. We had two very large contributors, donators to the project. One of them we know personally. His granddaughter has autism as well. He's a good family friend. And then some other individuals in the community helped to make this possible too. On the bags, I'm going to heat press on them a design, and it'll say sensory bags. And then we added on there that the bags were made possible by the generosity of our community, because without the community's help, we would not have been able to make these happen.
And this has truly been a personal project for you in particular, but you have bigger plans. Like your goal is to have an actual 501c3 nonprofit and to be able to expand into things more than just these sensory bags.
Absolutely. That is the ultimate goal. We're working on getting that together now. There is a lot of legal jargon to read
Yes.
through and very specific things that have to be involved in the articles of incorporation for something like that and so forth. And I'm doing this, I don't want to say on my own, because we do have support from family and friends in doing this. But when you're looking at doing paperwork like this, you kind of are on your own, reading through it, trying to make sense of what it's saying so that you get it right the first time and you're not delayed even longer trying to get it up and going.
So for someone who's listening today, I know you've met your quota, I'll call it, for your 50 bags. You're going to want to do more bags in the future. And then, of course, once you get your certification as an actual 501c3, how is the best way for people to follow along or stay in the loop?
This time we did it through Facebook. One of the moms from ABA, her name is Katie Brown. She helps a lot of individuals trying to do small projects like this. She has a very big following, so she posts on Facebook. She gives her Venmo and different things like that, and just asks people, hey, if you can contribute. If not, just share this and get it out there to people. Once we finally get the 501c3 up and going, we'll have the official Facebook page. We'll have a actual web address account for things like this. And when that happens, we plan on blasting it everywhere, all over Facebook, social media, that kind of thing, to get it out there to hopefully be able to do a lot. Helping people is something that I love to do, and to be able to do it on a larger scale, that's the dream.
If you're that knee deep in paperwork, you obviously already have a name for this nonprofit. You told me before we started recording that you're dedicating it to the memory of Michael, your son that you lost several years ago. What name are you planning to call this nonprofit?
Michael's Gifts. He was a child who loved to give back to people. He would use his Christmas money, his birthday money, to buy toys, to donate to Toys for Tots. If he saw somebody ringing a Salvation Army bell, he had to have money to put in it. He always thought of his siblings, of his parents when he was out. Hey, can I get mom something? Can I get my brother something? You know, even just like little things around the house at 6, 7 years old, he would, hey, mom, I saw that laundry needed to be started, so I started a load of laundry for you. He just loved giving and making people's lives better and easier. And I know without a doubt that this would be something that he would absolutely love.
He would have been the best big brother ever to Aiden, to Abby, and to Jackson.
He would have taken this all in stride. The kind of kid that he was a lot like me, and the fact that he would have taken the opportunity to learn anything and everything he could about autism and what it was and how he could help. And that's what he would have done. He would have helped the best that he could have.
Thank you, my friend, for taking the time to not only just educate me on what things have been like for you as you've taken this journey with Aiden, but to give me some insight into these bags. And I feel like I should put together my own bag and just keep it in my car so that I have it if I'm ever out and about somewhere and recognize a situation where I think it might help.
Yeah, it is a good thing to have. A lot of autism parents, you will see them carrying around bags. because they know they need this stuff. But every once in a while, we are human. We forget things. A good thing to look out for, you'll see kids wearing like sunflower lanyards. And that is one of the universal signs of this child is neurodivergent. So if you see a kid wearing a sunflower lanyard, that's one of those sly little ways to let others know they're a little different.
That is really good information to have. Thank you for sharing that with me.
You're welcome.
And I will keep everyone updated as best I can on the Valley Today Facebook page when everything kicks off. Will you come back maybe later in the summer when this is all official and we'll talk about what you're doing then?
I would love to.
That is fantastic. Thank you for taking the time today. I can't believe that I never saw the top of a Joe Woodall head as we had this whole conversation.
He is on daddy duty upstairs with all of the kids. So,
do you want to keep talking for another hour or so? I feel like that might be a break for you.
Big break for me. He's an amazing dad. Anytime he can, he jumps right in and helps with the kids.
Thank you for taking the time this morning. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you.
I will be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of The Valley Today, a few minutes after noon, so meet me here then.